Part 3. So we've already gone through the literature summary and the resources. So how can a researcher go about studying these strategies? So as we've had 12 strategy plan, a 6 strategy plan, all these different ideas on how best to educate or assist ELL students. So which ones work, which ones don't work? As stated at the beginning of my presentation, new teachers and new and experienced teachers have stresses already. You have so many things. Perhaps an experienced teacher would have lesson plans already in place. I would assume that there's some tweaking that goes on every year. But as new teachers, we're trying to develop our lessons. We're just trying to get everything in place. So going down a road of trying every single strategy sometimes isn't the best method. So there has to be a way of finding out what works, what doesn't work, or what is the most feasible or the one that will gain us and the student the most knowledge. So this is what this is all about here. So my data sources. So in order to figure out what works, what doesn't work, we're going to have to do questionnaires. So ideally, initial, a midterm, and a final questionnaire can be used to provide a researcher with the student's proficiency in English language. So we need to set a baseline. Not every single student is going to be the same. Not every student from one specific geographical location that have come to Canada, be that from within Canada or outside of Canada, no two students will likely be the same. So that initial questionnaire will provide a base point for which we can look back at and see how successful were they later on. So accommodations can be made, can be tailor-made to each student based on their understanding of the English language. So fully understanding that participants may not be able to understand complex terms, the questionnaire can be designed with a true, false, multiple choice type questions, as well as a written component. The written component should be there, and this is just a questionnaire. It's not being marked. If they can't write a full sentence of English, that in itself is a data source, is a data point. So allowing the student to express themselves through these questions will provide the teacher some valuable insight. Why are you taking transportation tech? What is your favorite vehicle? Personal interest data, and this is something that we can tie into later lessons. Why is a student taking transportation tech? Well, because maybe they want to be a tech, maybe they want to be an engineer, maybe they just want to learn how to fix their own vehicles, their family vehicle. So these kinds of questions, answers to these questions, will allow me to better serve that student. Second bit of data source that we can do is a technical interview. So rather than rely solely on written or tests or research papers or anything like that perhaps other classes in English or history or geography class might use, we have an awesome opportunity in tech so that we can conduct a technical interview. And the way a technical interview would work is we would have a piece of equipment that lesson would already be provided for the student with written instructions, physical, practical instruction, perhaps even a student already using that piece of equipment. So for an example, a tire machine. So basically, a tire machine is a rather simple piece of equipment where the tire is removed from the rim. So this piece of equipment, a student needs to understand how to use it. So they can demonstrate how to use it. They can show the proper personal protective equipment that needs to be used with this equipment. They can show technical ability as far as when tires are mounted, and not to get into a lesson, but a tire needs to be mounted a certain way depending on what side. Some tires, depending on if it's going on the left side of a vehicle or the right side of a vehicle, they are rotational tires. So a student would have this knowledge. So rather than write a paper based on, well, this tire has to go on the left side of the vehicle because of the arrows or whatever, they can show it, and this is a demonstration. So technical interview allows the student a one-on-one interview with myself or with the educator, and they can go through the machine and they can explain it from start to finish, and this will provide us with the data that's required. Allows the student to practice their English, so their retention is gauged based on this technical interview. Their delivering of the practical of the practical knowledge that they have. So can they physically mount the tire? Can they physically remove the tire? That sort of practical ability, as well as their knowledge. Can they communicate this? So they have to teach me how to use a tire machine as if I've never ever used this thing ever in my life. So in essence, they become the teacher. Pretend I don't know anything and go through the whole process. So it allows both hands-on, practical, taps into their knowledge, as well as their communication skills, because they need to communicate this to us. And the last piece, and probably one of the most important pieces of data that we can use, is a student journal. Now, a student journal can serve multiple purposes, and it allows the student to record the daily, weekly events, tasks, processes, anything that goes on in the shop. It allows the student to recount and reflect on the learning process, and allows them to also be responsible for what they're working on. If we have a student journal that is empty because the student isn't doing anything, well, that's not going to get you very good marks. So it allows me as an educator or the student to tell me, hey, I was doing this. This is what I was working on. I was working with Billy, and we were working on the tire machine today, and we were doing this, and this is what I learned. The other great thing about a student journal is that it allows a communication with the parents. So this is something that, especially at grade 9 and 10, right through grade school, a lot of students are already used to having a book that goes home and parents sign it every day. This is a little bit of an extension on that. Parents don't need to sign this every day, but on a weekly basis, if this journal were to go home, allow the parents to see what was going on in shop class, and it allows that communication, as cited before, integrating parent involvement into this ELL student and all students. So this student journal would certainly help this as well. Although the student won't be marked on spelling and grammar, they're encouraged to write as much or as little as they can, but really, allows them to put their thoughts down on paper, allows them to write and build that confidence, not only in their practical work that they're doing in the shop and recounting what they're doing and allowing them to build and look back and say, well, back in September I didn't know how to use a tire machine. Now in November, I'm good at it. But it also allows them to chronicle this in written work. So it allows them to actually put something down on paper and realize how to write. And you may make an error, and that's okay. And it needs to be corrected. So an error that maybe happened grammatically or spelling in September might be gone by November, just by a simple student journal. So the student journal process is a great data source for us in order to see, has the student improved? Was there parental involvement, and did the parent sign it every week? And as a result, did the student did their spelling get better or worse? Or if there was no parent involvement, those sorts of things, you can hopefully draw correlations between those. So triangulation validity and reliability. In addition to the student data collected, this researcher, I will also keep notes based on anecdotal evidence. Classroom observation, class participation will always be monitored and graded. Again, this is just anecdotal. It's my experience. If we see a student in the corner, as my associate teacher likes to say, it's magnet effect. So if you try to put two north poles together, they will repel each other. So as I'm going around the shop, if I see a student that always wants to avoid me, you can pick up on those cues, right? If you see a student that is in there trying something different that they don't know how to do and they're eager to learn, well, those kinds of notes, that will be recorded. The goal here is geared more towards effort and integration rather than the skill base. Try something new. You haven't used a tire balance machine, you haven't used a drill press, let's try something new. So those kinds of skills is what the goal is, and that's what will be marked. It's more of an effort based. A student who attends class, is engaged in practical work, and demonstrates an interest in learning should do very well in this capacity. So participants in setting, verification of research data. So this is secondary school. Although this research model may be used with multiple grades, it has been designed specifically to new Canadian ELLs or Canadian ELL students in a full semester grade 9 or 10 transportation technology program. In order to not single out any participant, particular student, or group of students, the data will be collected from all students in the classroom. The data that's used in this research can be used within the gradebook or mark book, depending on the school board, and anecdotal evidence can go towards the student's participation. The data can also be used in order to draw parallels, to draw correlation between ELL students and which strategies might be best suited to assist them. I didn't want to use grade 11 and 12s. By that point, they are more of an adult, so I'm not sure if you'd get the same sort of participation from the parents as you would in grade 9 and 10. I'm not sure if the willingness, perhaps, of the student to try new things when they're not comfortable with their language would be there in 11 and 12. So this research is primarily based grade 9 and 10. Ethical considerations. So informed consent. So students and parents should be informed or will be informed that this research is being conducted and the purpose of the research. Parents and guardians are free to make an informed decision on whether or not to participate in the study and can opt out. It needs to be of beneficence. So be of benefit, do not harm. Obviously, when we are collecting data of this nature, it could be easy for somebody to say, hey, this group of immigrants don't do well in school because of XYZ. So the idea here is this is in order to assist a student and is not for perpetrate hate or racism towards a group and say, hey, English students are this or native students are this. The idea here is to help. Is to help all the students. So how best or what's the strategies that would work best to assist these students. And of course, confidentiality. So although portions of the data will be used to develop a grade for the students, the main focus is on builder strategies to assist ELL and ESL students. So final data for this study should ensure anonymity of each subject. So once a final report is compiled, only student initials should be used. So again, running out of time. So I will see you in part 4.